It'll take me a moment here. Woo! Okay. This has been such a privilege. I was so excited to take this job 20 years ago, intrigued by a church that would put its faith into action and withstand the picketing of their church. I was inspired by a young man on the board whose wedding had literally been picketed. I thought, wow, these are my people. Now I'm going to add, now that I've heard other people's remark, my memory of the job interview with Steve Wellington went a little bit differently. It went a little bit more like, but you've never actually developed housing, have you? And I did, because I had done different pieces of it. And I knew well enough to say, no, I have not. And then try to sell. I was also trying to close the deal. So I learned from that all Steve wanted was an honest answer, and we could go forward from there. So when Lydia Apartments got created, and many of you will see it if you don't from the parking lot, and now it's been expanded, it would have been so easy in that moment when Lydia Apartments was open to think, great, look at what we have done. As a single congregation, we've had this impact. But like me, you asked, what's next? How do we have even greater impact? Many of you have heard me share the story of my son, Tyrone, telling his friend in kindergarten that couldn't come to his birthday party because she was in a shelter. Don't worry, my mom will build you a home. And I've always said, I couldn't build her a home, but we could. Today we have 19 apartment buildings and 3 more opening in the next 12 months. Congregation to around 100. We now have a budget of over $12 million a year. Okay, that's one thing I won't miss. We've become a leading housing policy expert, really driving transformational housing investment. We've shifted public funding for housing to be focused on those that are the lowest income and have the greatest barriers. And we've become known for our willingness to take on challenges, creating housing for those coming out of incarceration and for those who are unsheltered with opiate addiction. Many of you know I come out of a community organizing background. The reference to Paul Wellstone that made me tear up was he was my professor in college. He got me my first community organizing job. The best definition for me of organizing is making the impossible possible. I believe that part of the secret at Beacon has been to cast that big vision, that all people have a home. And the power of believing in abundance. We believe there are the resources for all of us to have a home. And our willingness to hold tension with our public officials. Poor Commissioner Hubbard, who's been up in front of hundreds of people at times, and Commissioner Latondras, who's here also. You notice not that many other public officials came. So please thank those that did. I need to tell a few war stories, right? There are a few memories that stick in my head. Out of those 20 years, it's really hard to pick which ones to talk about. I do want to start with just a funny story. Coming back to me, and I asked Carol and Lynn Truesdale if I could tell this story. I'm not sure if they actually remember, but it was a wonderful thing when Lydia Apartments opened up, right? We had been picketed, it was a big deal, all the residents were there, we were now celebrating. I believe it was actually maybe the 1-year anniversary of Lydia Apartments, and we welcomed in hundreds of people to come and celebrate with the residents. And so Lynn, as the board chair, Carol as the board chair, and Lynn came early, and they were walking around, and one of the residents invited them in to show off their apartment. And they walked around, it was clean and neat and so carefully decorated. And to imagine this man had been in a shelter less than a year before. And one of the things he'd done is put twinkle lights around all of the posters that were beautiful around his apartment. Now they were posters of naked women. It was a beautifully decorated apartment. And so poor Carol and Lynn, they are such, for those of you who know them, they're such kind and warm and welcoming people. They just complimented him on his interior decorations. And of course I had to send another staff person over to explain why not all the guests were toured through that apartment. And then we had all of these ups and downs. In 2008, right as an economy, we were melting down, the banking economy was happening. And here we were about to close on the financing of one of our developments. And we were getting to closing. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and we wanted to get this closed. Before, some of you know, I have a reputation as a penny pincher. Matt Crellin, who is our Director of Housing Development, was calling and saying, you know, this bank, who will go unnamed, this bank wants $35,000 in legal fees to get, and Angela Christie's here, she'll remember this. They want the other side wanted $35,000 for legal fees. And I'm like, call the community development arm, talk to so-and-so. This is 2008, right? The banking system in America is melting down. They're like, they're not there anymore. I'm like, call that person above them. Okay, they're not there. And I'm like, okay, we'll pay the $35,000, let's get to closing. We get $1 million sent in, probably from the city, into title. And I got a call Tuesday before Thanksgiving at 5 o'clock. I'm already home for the holidays. The title company has just filed for bankruptcy. And I called Steve Wellington at home and said, what do I do? And I'm not sure if he used these words or not, but he was like, you're SOL. And that was the first time Steve did not have a solution for what I'm like, what do you mean? That next morning I got a call back. The title company, they were the second largest title company in America. They had been bought out and they were reopened for business. And I felt like, it never made the paper. I felt like I was one of the few people who saw that I'm sure U.S. Treasury stepped in and made sure that happened so they were back and doing business, because otherwise it would have shut down the real estate industry in America. So the Nakoma today was built because that happened. And those were just one of the moments that people didn't know that we struggle with in our ups and downs as we get to closings. Another one I just want to speak, the power of the collaborative and the power of our clergy. Some of you were there at the city council meeting in the city of Plymouth. We were working to create Cranberry Ridge. And we were partnership with Interfaith Outreach, community partnership. If you know LaDonna Hoy, 40 years she's dedicated to fighting suburban poverty. She's really the Mother Teresa of Wayzata and Minnetonka and Plymouth. And she was there to testify to the need for affordable housing. Well, the mayor who opposed our development didn't want anyone to speak to the need for affordable housing at this hearing. So she gavelled down LaDonna Hoy. And I was like, wow, I didn't know anyone closed down this woman. So then a clergy person stepped to the podium to speak on affordable housing and the value. And the mayor gavelled down that clergy person. So the next clergy person stepped to the podium and spoke, and the mayor gavelled them down. And then the next clergy person, and this was all spontaneous. And finally, one of the clergy, he was just so exuberant and he got the energy going. And finally, the mayor just started laughing and saying, okay, I guess I'm going to have to go to your church and listen to you preach this. You've got the rhythm. And so we got our Cranberry Ridge approved. It is now built and filled with residents. The mayor, of course, never did vote for it, but we did get it through. And so it just speaks to the power that you all have helped bring into the room. Before Commissioner Ho was Commissioner Tingerthal, as we started to do our advocacy work, one of the things, and we were spreading the word, and she shared later with me that she had called for assistance at Wilder, for senior assistance for her mother. And the person who took her call said, oh, Mary Tingerthal, I've been sending you emails because I'm part of a Beacon congregation. And so Mary Tingerthal called me like, oh my God, Beacon is everywhere. And then on a more serious note, one of my memories is one of the young women when we opened up Prior Crossing. And she had gotten her key and she was ready. She had been experiencing homelessness and was ready to move into her apartment. And the next morning, the staff realized she had not spent the night there, and they asked her why she hadn't spent the night. And she said, I had to spend it out. The woman I've been living out on the streets with doesn't get her key until today. And I could not leave her out alone on the streets. And to me, that's been the mantra and the value that I try to hold, that we are not done until we have left no one behind. This past year has been extraordinarily successful with the power of the legislature and the changing attitude in local city councils. It's also been one of the more challenging ones, with the impact on crime and the opioid crisis that's impacting our residents and our service providers, and now Beacon. I truly hoped that I could pass on to this new CEO with more funds in the bank than we have right now. Part of our philosophy of abundance has been a willingness to share what it will take, and we need to raise an additional $1 million in private funding this coming year to support our goals. Opening 3 new developments, one of our biggest years yet. Building momentum for Bring It Home, designing housing and services for those with autism, and effectively responding to the safety concerns of the community to keep our residents safe. And we need more advocacy to overcome the challenge at Prairie Point, where they're trying to strip our land use approval 3 years after our win, when we're just about over the finish line. Did you realize how I worked the GAP message? I'm still so excited for the opportunities for Beacon and for all of you that I still light up talking about them. Because I trust that these 20 years are just the beginning. This journey has followed my family journey as well. I became a mother the first year at Beacon, and my son just moved out to his own place last fall. As many of you know, if you're a parent, you work to pass on your values and your skills, but you know that your child will take what they need and what fits for them, and then carve out a new path for themselves. The belief in taking risks for social justice, the belief that we as a society have the resources for all people to have a home are built into the DNA of Beacon. We have an extraordinary board, a dedicated and skilled staff, and senior leadership, and all of you as the backbone of the organization, that I know Beacon will continue to thrive and make remarkable things happen.